like taxi cabs. And it was the constant hypocrisy that they got picked up on by the media, and then they couldn't handle the criticism from the media, and then it all turned hostile. Then they started suing everybody, and the whole thing got so toxic. Eventually, they just say, we've had enough of this. We're not going to do any more dreary duties on a wet Wednesday, which is what you have to do to earn your royal titles in the estimation of the public. And they decamped off to Montecito, bought themselves a massive mansion, and they were supposed to be doing it, Meghan, if you remember, this was going to be their liberation, their freedom, and it was supposed to make them happy. I've never seen two more miserable people who never stop whining and suing absolutely everybody in the pretense that this is because they found their liberation and freedom. If you're so damn happy and free and liberated, well, shut up, stop whining and complaining about everything. But they're obviously not happy. And it's obviously been diminishing returns, where when you trash your family again and again and again, eventually there's not much left to say. And people don't really want to hear it. It's like the Spotify guy said. They're just a pair of grifters who just want to trash their family for loads of money and not put a shift in to do proper work. You and I know how hard it is to do this kind of thing properly. It's a lot of work with a dedicated team, and you put the hours in, and you've got to be creative and high energy and really put graft in. These two wanted to do massive deals with companies and then not do any work. Nobody wants to see her next podcast. Nobody listened to the first one. And that's for this thing she's now doing with the ridiculously long name that no one can remember, where she's going to try and be the
American, whatever. I have to write down American Riviera Orchard. See footnote 47 for the remainder of the name.
Right, and she's now got all her celebrity, sort of B-list, C-list mates putting out Instagram posts about her jam, and it's like, how the mighty fall. This was a woman who had it all in this country, who literally had it all, and is now flogging jam from her kitchen in Montecito, while her husband runs around fuming about absolutely everything and everyone, because he knows, in his gut, he knows what he's lost. And eventually, those chickens will come home to roost.
And then she will be touting their eggs on her stupid website where she's wearing evening gowns while walking around her mansion that we're supposed to feel sorry for her because she's in. I love it. But on the grifter subject, one of the funniest things that was Bill Simmons, who said that at Spotify, I've never seen such a pair of grifters. They wouldn't do any work. She got paid all this money. She barely did anything. Him too. Yeah. And now she signs this pod deal with this Lemonada. We're not getting a podcast for years. And then she decides to sign this deal with Netflix. She's done nothing other than now this show she's going to do on cooking and friendship. Finally, okay, we'll believe it when we see it. And then finally, she's got her little Riviera thing going, where so far we've had one jar of strawberry jam. She's so lazy.
The whole thing, it's sort of lazy and a bit pathetic. This is somebody who demands that we use the title Duchess of Sussex. I come from Sussex, which is a county in the south of England. I've spent more time in Sussex in the last month than Meghan Markle has spent in her entire life. She has actual
She's your ruler, Piers. I didn't know that. She's your...
She ain't my ruler, Meghan Kelly. She is somebody who... Listen, as I've said to you, I think, many times before, if they actually want to do this kind of thing and trade themselves around as sort of, celebrities and do that sort of circus, then they can do it. But they can't do it with the royal titles. They shouldn't be using the royal titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Bestowed on them by the monarchy, an institution they constantly complain about and trash whenever they get the chance. Fine, you want to go off and be celebrities in California, do it. But don't trade on the titles. Every time I see her demanding to be called Duchess of Sussex, I laugh. Nobody in Britain calls her that. Meghan Markle. She got lucky, met her prince, dragged him out of the bosom of his family, dragged him away from the monarchy, which bestowed those titles on them, and has now ruthlessly, with him, exploited those titles for massive personal gain. And I think it's disgusting and hypocritical. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. I hope that King Charles, who obviously is massively distracted by his illness, but I hope that King Charles at some stage just has that conversation and says, you can't keep the titles, I'm sorry, but you can't keep demeaning the status of being a member of the royal family and attacking the family and the monarchy and retain your titles. You can just be Harry and Meghan and see how you get on, by the way, when you're no longer royals, because the answer is not very far.
That's right. Who wants your jam then? Did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the US with more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and over 2 million happy customers? Well, now you can grow lemon, avocado, olive, or fig trees. They have houseplants too. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to order online and ship directly to your door in 1 to 2 days. You can even speak to their specialists for a free consultation. You can find the perfect fit for your specific climate, location, and needs. Whether you're looking to add some privacy, shade, or natural beauty to your yard, Fast Growing Trees is ready to help you make the right selection from their nursery. Right now, they have some of the best deals online, like up to half off on select plants and more. Viewers get an additional 15% off when using the code Meghan at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com. Use the code MEGYN at checkout. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com, code Meghan. This offer won't last forever. Tell him I said.
Son, as a younger sibling, forget being the heir or the spare, understands that the older sibling is afforded certain privileges, like the bigger room. That happens in households all across the world. But Harry actually believes that this is some slight against his childhood. And then I just want to add here, going back to why I do believe that he is a victim of his own stupidity. He writes this one paragraph where he details how he's always been the spare, right? He's always been the spare, and that he was told explicitly, he uses the word explicitly, that he existed to perhaps provide a spare kidney or some spare bone marrow. Let me tell you, Dan, okay, I don't need fact checks. That just never happens. Nowhere in the history of the world did anyone ever turn over to a younger sibling and say, you exist for a spare kidney for some spare bone marrow. That isn't even how it works in the medical field. Just because you're a sibling doesn't mean that you're necessarily a match. So it's so ridiculous. And to me, it ranks as a great trove of comedy.
And I agree with all of that, right? But even a lack of intelligence, Candace, does not excuse the way that he has thrown his own flesh and blood under the bus to make millions and millions of dollars and seek a deranged sort of revenge because he's been manipulated by his wife. I mean, it's inexcusable the way that he talks about his father and his brother. And even, I couldn't believe this, he even slags off the late Queen and her late sister, Princess Margaret. It's almost like no one is safe from him.
Actually, the ugliest part is that he included his niece, Charlotte, crying over a bridesmaid dress. It's so remarkably petty. And the idea that you would use a toddler for book fodder and clearly excerpted text messages. We don't really know what's happened. He's being very careful to say, I don't know what this part is. His memory gets very foggy when we have the potential to receive some clarity about who his wife is. Who was quite, I think she is actually quite rude. She was quite rude to Kate. Memory gets foggy when it's convenient. Then he has sharp and crystal clear memory whenever he wants to basically sell to us that he and his wife are victims. But you are correct, and I will say this. Americans have a very big appetite for drama. That's why they moved to LA. It was always her plan to get back into LA. It's why she called Tyler Perry a perfect stranger and boo-hooed on the phone and called and told him everything, even though she had never spoken to him prior, because she wanted to get back into LA, and Tyler Perry is a billionaire. It's very easy to understand Meghan and what her desires are. But what I will say is that even for Americans, turning your back against the family is a step too far. You can maybe do that once and claim racism, and you had everybody believing that this must be it in the fog of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd when everyone was going crazy. But now there's more of a sober analysis on what's taken place. It seems too petty. It's gone too far. Not even the Kardashians. That is perhaps the example of the most crass family that we have in America. They put everything on display. But I will tell you one thing about the Kardashian sisters: they are loyal to one another. Yes. And that is the reason why people like them, right? They don't ever sell each other down the river, and they're a very close-knit, tight family, and people enjoy that. What Harry is doing, and that any wife would stand by and allow her husband to do this. I mean, there are some parallels. My husband and I, obviously he's English. We fell in love at the same time. I'm an American girl that came from nothing. My husband's family has a bit more than me. My husband's father is in the House of Lords. And it was, to understand the English culture, how did we end up on opposite sides of it? Why do I not think the UK is a racist country? Why do I think that the royal family is this wonderful traditional thing that's existed for a long time that has united the UK? And nobody even knew that Meghan Markle was Black until she wanted to tell us this. She never said she was Black throughout her entire career, never spoke about her Blackness. But when she needed an excuse to get out of being a bad person, she used it because the moment was right, as I said, during all the Black Lives Matter protests in the same way, and this is a bad thing to say, Harry has used Princess Diana as an excuse and as a shield, and something that is obviously very sad and a tragedy for any child to experience. He is now using it to say, well, you can't critique me because I am Princess Diana's son and I suffered this tragedy. Well, guess what? So did William. So did Prince William. And what you are doing to him, what you have done to his daughter, what you did to Charlotte, your niece. I mean, how dare you? Honestly, how could you ever do that to a little girl? To put that into a book, something so personal and perfectly normal, and to do that to his wife, Catherine. I mean, what has Princess Catherine ever done to Harry but love him? He should be ashamed of himself. Yeah, I suspect he is, because you can lie to the entire world. When you have quiet moments, you cannot lie to yourself.
Yeah, and indeed, and in the book, he even describes Kate as the sister he never had. Well, funny way to treat your sister. You mentioned Meghan's, shall we say, changing views on race. You have actually said in all of Spare and all of the characters spoken about in Spare, the people spoken about in Spare, you believe Meghan Markle is the most racist person in the book. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that if you go back and you look throughout Meghan Markle's entire career, she never wanted people to know that she was Black. She never wore that on her sleeve. She never spoke about her Blackness. If we had looked at her, I maybe would have assumed that she was Hispanic. No one would have ever guessed that she was Black. It was never relevant where she wanted to be in her career. And the first time that you find that Meghan mentions her Blackness is when she wants to get out of the royal family. Even at the wedding, the only Black people she had were billionaires that she wanted to be on their shows. She had Oprah and she had Gayle King and she had her mother, who is partially Black. But Meghan Markle didn't have any of her Black family members at her wedding. This is a woman that was escaping her Blackness throughout her entire life until she realized that it could be used to her advantage. And I find that to be despicably racist. When you say the only value that being Black has to me is when I can use it to get ahead and to climb the social ladder. And that's when I'm going to mention it. And I'm going to use it as a shield. So you can't say anything because I'm Black. And how dare you speak about a Black person in a negative way? Because she realizes that I don't have to face any critiques. I'll just call it racism. And then everyone will have to excuse my behavior. I find that to be despicable. It's a very bad view of Black Americans to have. And I want to be clear that it's not the way that most of us think. And so I'm so disgusted. Now she's done a 23andMe because she wants to know what percentage of Nigerian she is. She suddenly became interested in knowing what percentage of Nigerian she was at the ripe age of 41 years old. I mean, do me a favor, spare me, Harry, spare me.
What's interesting, though, reading the book, you can just tell how manipulated and sucked in he is by his wife. I mean, Candace, he still believes that Meghan had no idea who he was. He says multiple times in the book, she's never Googled me. She's never Googled my family. She has him wrapped around her little finger. And that's not to say that Harry shouldn't take the blame. I've always said right from the start, I think they are both to blame for their actions. But he is manipulated by her, is he not?
Absolutely. And what's so funny about that is Meghan is a trained actress. What she does is that she studies people. She's not a good actress, but she is a trained one, right? She's been doing it her entire life. And there is no doubt that she studied Princess Diana. She studied her mannerisms towards Harry when he was a boy and the way that she grabs her face. And this is the psychopathic elements of what she does, putting a pregnancy text next to Princess Diana's hair, saying that she put her hands on the grave to have a conversation with her, bursting into tears. And she has convinced, there's a thing called in psychology called the Freudian transfer. She has